Deep in the Amazon rainforest, buried beneath centuries of jungle growth, scientists stumbled onto something that should not exist. Patches of impossibly rich, jet-black soil stretched 2 meters deep in a region where the surrounding earth is one of the poorest on the planet. The Amazon's native feral soil is acidic, nutrient-leached, and becomes virtually useless within a few years of farming. And yet these dark patches, known as terra preta, Portuguese for black earth, are loaded with nutrients and have remained fertile for over 2,000 years, not 200, 2,000. That is not a typo, and it is not an exaggeration. It is a verified scientific finding that raises an uncomfortable question. If ancient people figured out how to turn the worst soil on Earth into the best soil on Earth using little more than charcoal and organic waste, why does almost nobody know about it today? Terra preta was created by pre-Columbian indigenous communities between roughly 450 BCE and 950 CE. These were not primitive people stumbling onto an accident. They developed a sophisticated, deliberate soil-building practice that involved mixing charcoal, bones, broken pottery, compost, and manure into the ground over generations. The results speak for themselves. These soils contain carbon levels 70 times greater than the surrounding Earth and up to 9% black carbon compared to 0.5% in adjacent soil just meters away. But here is the part that still baffles researchers. Terra preta appears to regenerate itself, growing at a rate of about 1 centimeter per year. Scientists have proposed theories about microbial feedback loops and self-sustaining nutrient cycles. But the honest truth is, we still do not fully understand the mechanism. What we do know is that when European colonizers arrived and indigenous populations collapsed from disease and slavery, the knowledge of how to create this soil was largely lost for centuries. An entire agricultural technology, arguably one of the most important ever developed, simply vanished from human practice. So what exactly does charcoal do to soil, and why does it work so remarkably well? First, an important distinction. Biochar is not the same as the briquettes you throw on your backyard grill. Those are compressed with binders and additives. Biochar is biomass, wood, crop residues, manure, heated at 350 to 700 degrees Celsius in an oxygen-limited environment through a process called pyrolysis. What comes out the other side is a lightweight, highly porous form of carbon that, under an electron microscope, looks like a honeycomb city for microorganisms. And that analogy is more literal than you might think. Soil biologist Elaine Ingham has emphasized that biochar's pores create ideal housing for beneficial bacteria and fungi. When pre-charged with beneficial organisms, it functions as what she calls a microbial apartment complex, a stable, protected habitat where soil biology can establish and thrive. The science behind why this works is well understood. Those microscopic pores hold water and dissolve nutrients in the root zone, which is critical in sandy or degraded soils where everything washes straight through. This alone makes biochar a powerful tool for drought resilience. But it goes further. Biochar has a high cation exchange capacity, meaning it chemically grabs and holds onto essential nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, zinc, manganese, instead of letting them leach away with every rainfall. It is generally alkaline, which means it reduces soil acidity, a massive problem in tropical soils and in temperate soils that have been heavily farmed with synthetic fertilizers for decades. And because the aromatic carbon structure of biochar resists microbial decomposition, it locks carbon into the soil for hundreds to thousands of years. That is why 2,000-year-old terra preta still has identifiable charcoal fragments in it. The carbon simply does not break down on any human timescale. The research backing these claims is substantial. A landmark 2011 meta-analysis by Jeffery and colleagues found a statistically significant overall benefit of biochar on crop productivity across dozens of studies. A 2022 meta-analysis by Melo and colleagues confirmed positive effects of biochar-based fertilizers on plant growth and soil health. At 10% application levels, biochar has been shown to reduce plant contamination by up to 80% and cut chlordane and DDX content by 68 to 79%, making it a potential remediation tool for polluted soils. Modest biochar additions can reduce nitrous oxide emissions from soil by up to 80% and can effectively eliminate methane emissions. These are not fringe claims from alternative gardening blogs. These are peer-reviewed findings published in mainstream scientific journals. Now, before this starts sounding like a miracle cure, let us be honest about what biochar cannot do and where the limitations are real. The title framing of 72 hours is dramatic and intentionally so. Biochar works, but it is not magic overnight. Real soil transformation takes weeks to months of microbial colonization, nutrient cycling, and structural integration. Biochar performs best in degraded tropical soils where the baseline is poor. If you already have healthy, well-structured temperate soil with good organic matter, the benefits will be smaller and harder to measure. Applied excessively or with the wrong feedstock, biochar can actually harm soil biota, reduce water availability, alter pH in the wrong direction, or increase salinity. And here is a critical point that most biochar enthusiasts gloss over. Fresh, uncharged biochar can temporarily deplete nutrients from your soil. Those empty pores are hungry, and they will absorb the very nutrients your plants need until they are saturated. This is why you must charge biochar before applying it, soaking it in compost tea, worm castings liquid, diluted urine, or another nutrient-rich solution for 2 to 4 weeks. Skip this step, and you may actually make your soil worse in the short term. Recommended application rates for significant yield improvements range from 2.5 to 20 tons per hectare, depending on soil condition. A handful in a pot plant is fine for experimentation, but meaningful agricultural results require meaningful quantities. So if biochar is legal to buy, legal to use, and scientifically validated, what is the basis for the claim that they made it illegal? Nobody has banned charcoal in your garden. You can order biochar online right now and mix it into your raised beds without anyone knocking on your door. But the framing taps into real frustrations about a tangled web of regulations that make producing your own biochar surprisingly difficult. The most straightforward way to make biochar is to burn biomass in pits, trenches, or open kilns. It is simple, cheap, and any farmer with crop residues can do it. But many states, counties, and countries have strict open burning regulations under clean air laws. In the United States, the EPA and state agencies regulate outdoor burning under the Clean Air Act. In many suburban and urban areas, any open burning is illegal, even burning yard waste in your own backyard. The European Union has similar restrictions, and the United Kingdom has increasingly cracked down on garden bonfires. This means the simplest, cheapest method that any small farmer or gardener could use to produce biochar is often technically illegal depending on where they live. And this disproportionately affects the people who would benefit most, small-scale farmers and home gardeners, while large industrial operations can navigate permit processes and install emissions control equipment. Adding to the confusion, biochar is not uniformly classified or regulated as a soil amendment in many jurisdictions. The United States has no federal standard for biochar. The only quality benchmarks come from voluntary programs like the International Biochar Initiative and the European Biochar Certificate, neither of which carries regulatory force. But the regulatory landscape is only half the story. Follow the money. The global synthetic fertilizer industry is worth over $200 billion per year. Biochar, which can be made from agricultural waste for almost free, directly reduces the need for nitrogen fertilizers, reduces irrigation requirements, and can replace expensive soil conditioners. There is no strong patent protection on putting charcoal in dirt. You cannot patent a process that indigenous Amazonians perfected 2,000 years ago. Major chemical companies cannot monetize biochar the way they monetize proprietary fertilizer blends, seed treatments, and soil additives. This is not a grand conspiracy with shadowy figures in boardrooms plotting to suppress ancient knowledge. It is simpler and, frankly, more depressing than that. There is no well-funded industry lobby pushing governments to promote biochar the way the fertilizer industry pushes its products. When was the last time you saw a biochar advertisement during a farming program? When has a biochar company sponsored agricultural extension services? The absence of promotion is not suppression in the traditional sense, but the effect is the same. A proven technology remains largely invisible to the people who need it most. Ironically, biochar is now being aggressively monetized, just not in a way that benefits small farmers. Carbon credit markets have discovered biochar, and it is selling at $300 to $7,000 per ton as a carbon sequestration instrument. In 2024, biochar projects made up 86% of all carbon dioxide removal purchases globally. The industry is booming, but primarily as a financial tool for corporations buying offsets, not as a grassroots soil amendment for the people growing food. The ancient technology that indigenous communities developed to feed themselves is being transformed into a commodity for wealthy carbon offset buyers, while the average farmer still reaches for a bag of synthetic fertilizer because that is what the system is set up to sell them. Here is what you can actually do. You can legally buy and use biochar in your garden in virtually every country. It is sold commercially, and nobody is going to arrest you for putting charcoal in your raised bed. Making biochar yourself is where the legal gray area exists, but low smoke methods like top-down burns in Kontiki kilns or retort-style containers produce significantly less smoke and may comply with local regulations. Always charge your biochar before applying it. Soak it in compost tea, worm castings liquid, or diluted urine for 2 to 4 weeks. Start small. Mix charged biochar at 5 to 10% by volume into your garden soil or potting mix. Observe, adjust, and scale up if the results warrant it. The bigger picture is this. The sustainable use of biochar could reduce global net emissions by up to 1.8 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year, roughly 3.6% of current global emissions. A 2023 study found biochar has the technical potential to sequester 7% of carbon dioxide on average across all countries, with some nations like Bhutan and India capable of sequestering over 20% of their emissions through biochar alone. Switching from slash and burn to slash and char farming could retain up to 50% of carbon in soil versus just 3% with conventional burning. James Hansen and James Lovelock, two of the most prominent climate scientists in history, have both advocated for biochar as a serious climate change mitigation strategy. The real tragedy is not that they made it illegal. It is that a 2,000-year-old technology, validated by modern science, confirmed by meta-analyses, and endorsed by leading climate researchers, remains largely unknown to the average gardener and farmer because there is simply no profit motive powerful enough to promote it. The ancient Amazonians figured out how to turn the worst soil on Earth into the best soil on Earth, and that soil is still fertile 2,000 years later. We have the science to confirm it works. The question is not whether charcoal fixes soil. The question is why we are still having this conversation instead of just doing it.